Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boys from For Those with Good Taste. I'm Matt. He's Lenny.
What up?
And today we decided to do things a little bit differently. So get your portal guns ready because here you're catching us in the digital space. And we've got a ton of stuff to talk about today.
It's a whole new world out here, Matt. And you're going to be sharing a little bit of your history from the past. Joe Rogan has inspired you to come clean.
I don't like the fact that you're throwing me under this bus, but we'll take a ride with you. It's all good. I'll be wrapping up talking about Boba and maybe the book. We'll see. And then we've got a bunch more to talk about.
Yeah, man, you're going to look like a jackass by the end of this one, especially when they hear your Super Bowl pick. So stick around to the end of the episode. It's a fucking banger. We promise.
That's right. We got Super Bowl picks, UFC 271 picks, and Lenny's going to be picking his nose. So you know what you got to do. Strap in, strap up, and get ready to have some fun because we're blasting off, people.
See you on the other side.
For those with good taste.
Hey, buddy.
What's up, dude?
How's it going over in Good Taste Studios?
We're going through a little construction on our end here. It's been an interesting little ride. It's nice to be back. A little new look for us. We're a couple first timers again, buddy.
Yeah, I know. It kind of feels like the very first day that we started doing this because we both have no idea what we're doing. But it feels comfortable because we're together.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's nice to see you. And it's like we're dipping our toe into the winter waters.
Are you making a proposal right now?
No, it was just more like painting a picture.
Because I'll get naked with you, buddy. You don't have to.
Actually,
we don't have to keep it casual for people.
Normally, when we get naked together, though, it's like a bathhouse situation. So the water's warm, the steam's up. This time of year, we're looking for shrinkage.
And there's no such thing as shortage of towels. Am I right?
I've never found a towel short enough.
Interestingly enough, dude, I think that for a big guy, you don't have a problem finding a small towel.
Yeah, you're right. So, Matt, I wanted to, I know there was like some important things. It was just like, you wanted to get, normally we're a little bit more, jokey around here, but you had a serious topic you wanted to start us off with this week.
Yeah.
You wanted to tell us how, obviously the Rogan stuff is going on right now. And you wanted to kind of tell us how you think it's okay. Like there should always be a time for the N-word. You were going to do a whole thing about that.
I didn't realize that we were automatically jumping into the compilation that he's been known for over the last couple of days.
You've never felt so vindicated because you often do the same thing, right?
No, I don't. I don't throw around that word willy-nilly. Thank you very much. I have been known to bring up the country of Niger every now and again. I'm a fan, and I know that gets a little bit dicey, but
it's that one's probably a little. That might be worse than Rogan. I do think it's amazing.
I don't think so.
And obviously he's not going to get canceled. Unfortunately, there's probably a lot of other messages going on and what that's really about. But I do think it's amazing that like we give passes to like, hey, this 40-year-old man just had to learn, like I get that it was 12 years ago, but it's not like he was like, it's not like when you see the 14-year-old kid who had Twitter and like put rap lyrics up or said whatever. I think there's a lot of passes you give out then, but it is a little crazy to hand out passes to like 40-year-old men.
And it's also a dicey situation because, they make the joke of how many times he's actually said it on his show, but it's the way that he said it. It's the feeling of everything just being okay when he's saying it with his guests. And then if you know Joe Rogan, I can't say I know him personally. I was a huge fan of the show and I stopped watching it probably even before all this, stuff kind of, I'll check in for an episode every now and again, but it just kind of seems like you kind of got to be respectful. And I don't want to say he was throwing that word out for a lack of disrespect, but he wasn't really sensitive to who it's about as far as a culture standpoint and who actually should be using the word. There is a myth that if you pay for the music, you're allowed to sing it. I don't follow that myth by any means, but Joe Rogan's definitely in a little bit of a hot spot here, but to your point, I don't see Spotify dropping him by any means. They've already made a pretty huge investment. So what, they're going to lose a couple of 60-year-old, 70-year-old music artists along the way. But
No,
what's
they're
your thoughts on
definitely,
it?
he's not going anywhere. And just to be clear to everybody, I did this to make a joke on Matt's against Matt here, that he doesn't actually believe in saying the N-word in front of people. It's only in his car while listening to Biggie.
Again, if you pay for the music, it is debatable that you might be able to sing it in your car. I'm not saying I'm an advocate, but I think we do cut somebody a little bit of slack here. But in this case, not Joe Rogan.
It is just insane now that like the new thing though is, or there's just people out there that literally, dude, like these people, how much time would it have to look up? What did he says it like something like 70 times, right? Isn't that what they say from that compilation? To be honest, I haven't watched it. If I'm just telling you the truth, I haven't watched the compilation because I actually do.
I'm sorry, you kind of have to.
Do you remember, like you've watched, I haven't watched in years now, the Rogan podcast, but I watched all the way back then. And I'm pretty sure you did as well, right? And
Yeah.
I remember some of those early episodes and him saying it and being like, oh, like, I'm surprised nobody's being like, hey, dude, you probably shouldn't like say that so willing, like, you know, out there, you know what?
Yeah.
I don't advocate for it, but I do think that like, you know, whatever you say in the privacy of your own home is not up to me, and like, whatever, it's a, you know, it's a free world, but like being on recording and the standing, I think a lot of these people don't always appreciate, and maybe back then even more for him, this was before he had the platform that he has now, and you just don't think of the gravity of what you're talking about. And it's the same way I think we can relate in a way too, where we're just here, I'm talking to you most of the time, you know what I mean? And like
Exactly.
we're putting stuff out there, and like I try not, and neither one of us want to go past a certain line, of course, but you're going to swing and miss sometimes, or you're going to have an opinion that's not totally fair and popular. So it is a crazy time. And like what it's create, you know, it's nuts, Matt. It's like what the internet power can do for you now also is just so nuts.
Yeah. Well, so what I was going to say is this whole situation, you know, I was reading, it's eerily similar to Barstool Presidente.
Yeah,
where
he went on a debate with three nerds the other day on the internet. It was very funny.
Yeah, because you know, this started off as a C word thing, right? We're talking about the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And Rogan, you know, had his own
remedy
so Matt, for how he treated the situation.
I will just say, it didn't start with COVID. It actually started, I think, more with the election. At least if you're going to tie in Portnoy, like,
yeah, no.
His
So what
thing
I'm
is
talking
like
about,
interviewing Trump and all of that stuff, and then like it leads to Rogan, you know?
Yeah, sure. So in the case of Rogan, I'm talking about from a big platform kind of going against him. It really started when CNN was taking his videos from when he was diagnosed with corona, and he was out there taking ivermectin, which is known to be a parasitic like remover, all that stuff. So when you think about him going on his platform talking about what he used for treatment, by all means do that. But when CNN, who has Fox News and everybody else is putting his interviews out there, they're doctoring what his video looks like. At the end of the day, regardless of what started it, it's all kind of manifested into one thing or another. Okay, hey, he's a pro-Trump advocator. He'll have anybody on his show, and I think that that's something that Joe Rogan did really well. But he also doesn't do a good job of distancing himself from things that he doesn't agree with. He'll kind of go along with it. He'll not necessarily ask questions to provoke a different answer, but he continues to kind of go along with what his guest is saying, and that puts him in a bad spot. With the Portnoy thing, I think Portnoy is another person who, whether it was his sex tape or whether it was the fact that he was taking photos with politicians who aren't really in the greatest spotlight right now, it always seems like it's one thing leading to another, and it always ends with cancel culture being a thing where we're like, okay, I guess Joe Rogan's done. No, Spotify is going to continue to support him. I think the CEO of Spotify went on to say, hey, he doesn't reflect any of our beliefs or values, but at the end of the day, this is the platform that we've given him, and he's going to continue to move on.
I think it's going to be impossible to take away anybody's like platform at this point, because the same way I don't know if this makes sense, but it's like Bitcoin got really popular, right? Because it's like a non no, there's nobody that has control over it, right? Basically,
Right.
it's the same thing with like having a podcast and the internet. It's like Rogan made $1 billion without Spotify. So now it's up to those companies whether or not they want to profit off of him. You know what I mean? Like it's like
Yeah.
if they don't want him, he can still make money. He can still have a voice. You look at it like it took Alex Jones like 15 years of saying crazy ass shit to get canceled. So it it's going to be impossible for once you get to a certain level, as long as there's like a diehard, and Rogan is one of these guys. Dave Portnoy is one of these guys that like no matter what,
Your
they're going to
fan
have
base.
this like cult behind them in a way, you know, that's going to follow them and
Yeah.
dedicate it like a dedicated fund of money no matter what. It's you're just watching superpowers at this point kind of fight at each other.
Yeah.
I think this is the most serious part of conversation we've had in a year and a half. It's crazy.
Well, I mean,
Do
you just make it extremely provocative by associating our show with Joe Rogan using the N-word, which I'm not going to lie, dude, we're going to get some clicks off of this. Shout out to Nicaragua. I think
actually, I wonder if they've heard yet. We could be the guys to kind of bring this story to Nicaragua, dude.
Oh, dude, I think you're underestimating Joe Rogan's reach. I think people out there have been wearing fanny packs thanks to Joe Rogan for years.
Well, no, I don't want to offend my fans. Never mind. I love you guys.
We love you guys. Taste these and taste that.
Especially the ones number two wrestling podcast in Nicaragua. Everybody just shout out to the guys out there for keeping us up tops of the charts. We appreciate you. But speaking of tops on the charts, Matt, and we didn't get a chance to look this up before the show, so maybe we can do that now.
That guy.
I'd like to talk about Jackass. You saw Jackass this weekend.
Oh,
I had the
man.
opportunity to, and due to crippling anxiety, I didn't go. Do you want to talk about that first? Do you want to talk about the movie?
I want to talk about that because what form? Because I know you to be a guy who, when get put into uncomfortable positions, you just tend to go with it. So, what crippling anxiety made you just not show up?
Yeah, but you say I go with it. I don't know this movie that well, but I do know this scene. You know, like is it called American Beauty? It's the movie that ends with the plastic bag blowing in the wind at the end of it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yes, I do know.
I'm basically like when you talk about uncomfortable situations, I'm that plastic bag. Like I'm just kind of floating through motion, crippled, not knowing what to do. So no,
letting the wind take you.
I kind of joke, but like, so I think I told you this last week, but I got a ticket for an early showing of Jackass Forever. Jackass Forever.
Yes, I remember this. Okay, I already continue. I already know where this is going.
And like, it was a investors meeting because I've had stock in AMC, and I've also at this point been a member of their Premiere Pro or Premiere whatever for I don't know 3 years now, whatever. They've just been making money off me to and fro for as long as they can.
100%, dude. Every single week.
More than 3 years, actually, probably. But either way, I just was like an investor meeting. Like, what could that possibly be? Like, they're not just going to let me get in there and see the movie. Regardless, I would have seen it for free. But like, I was like, I just don't want to get held up by these people trying to sell me on the idea of like, the future of AMC. And it's like, I'm a believer, but like, I would say you're not talking to me. You're giving me free tickets. I'm not the one you got to convince.
No,
I
I'm
just didn't
trying
want to
to
have
have
the conversation.
Yeah, if anything, I'm trying to be Bruce Wayne in that situation. Like, I'll make my investments behind the scenes. I'll write a check, no problem. But I'm not showing up to a meeting to schmooze it over with some billionaires, you know?
Exactly. So anxiety, it wasn't my worst bout of it. I just was like, the fear of not knowing what they were going to try and hold me up was, I was like, if it's before the movie, I have to stay there. If it's after, I feel super rude walking out. It was a lot going on, you know?
Being the guy that as soon as the credits hit, being like, I'm on a call. I gotta out of here. I apologize. All right. So I guess I'll give you a pass on this one because I know that we had discussed it, and every scenario that we broke down, it was like, yeah, this isn't going to work out in any way.
Yeah. So I opted out, and then it's just I didn't feel like doing it otherwise, I guess. But was it? You let me know and let the people know, Matt. Is it worth going to see?
Man, I will tell you, as someone who has been a Jackass fan, consider myself a Jackass in a sense, but I've seen Jackass when it first came out in theaters. I saw Jackass 2 when it came out in theaters. I think three. I think they did the 3D one. I think I caught it with DVD. So when Jackass Forever first got announced, we watched the trailer. I was like, okay, there's already three stunts that they're doing that I know I'm going to want to watch. And Lenny, I can honestly say that 50 minutes into watching this film, I was in pain at how much I was laughing, at how uncomfortable I was at some of the things that they put me through. It felt like I was one of the guys. I was experiencing that moment once again. And it brought me back to, I don't want to give away parts of the movie, but if you go back to Jackass 2, the bull seesaw, where the guys are basically trying to jump on one end of the seesaw and keep away from the bull. And I think it's Pontius already makes the first bad movie, stays on too long, gets flipped over, and it starts a whole bunch of chaos. So from minute one, from the opening, it's incredible. Through that first 45, 50 minutes, you're kind of just trying to catch your breath. And then they slow things down. They take care of you towards the end. But for the most part, I left it an hour and 30 minutes, Len. I think you and I can both agree anything in that time span is going to be good. But it had me laughing from start to finish.
Well, I think the best thing about it is you said it feels very similar. Did it feel different at the same time? Like,
yeah,
did
it felt
feel
different
new and reinvigorated?
Yeah, new and reinvigorating. We had talked about it because they were introducing new characters or new members of the team, right? So we had, I think, 4 or 5 new additions to the Jackass team. But it was also really cool to just see some of the things that they were doing. They were very Jackass-esque in the stunts that they were doing, but they were pushing the envelope every single time. And there was a couple of moments where I was like, no, one of these guys is going to die. Like, this isn't good. And for anybody who's had a chance to catch the film, while you're going through the laughs, it's very difficult to catch your breath because it's one after the other. One scene in particular, so many accidents happen before the scene even gets started that you're already geared up to the point where you're like, okay, if anything else happens, I'm not going to be able to breathe for 5 or 6 minutes. And all it takes is Wee Man getting whacked in the nuts. And boom, I'm right back to 1998, baby.
It is like weird crash test dummy stuff where you're like, they're really just building you up to try and see how far they're going to go without actually seriously hurting themselves or killing themselves. Like that. And it's almost like a weird snuff film that you're watching in a way, right? That we all enjoy that aspect of it so much. But yeah, you've sold me. I definitely want to get out and see it. I don't know if I'll see it in theaters at this point, just because we're rolling up onto some bigger releases.
Big time.
I just reminded myself of one thing I want to get into, but also I do want to mention, I don't know if it showed on the screen there, but because I think you're the one sharing the screen right now, potentially. Either way, box office wise, it's already made more than its money back. So it cost $10 million to make. It was number one at the box office. It made about 24 million just domestically in the United States. Rule of thumb, it's usually about double the money with like promotion and stuff like that, right? So the movie probably cost 20 million. So it's already surpassed that to the point where it's going to make a sizable amount here for what the cost on that was. And you're probably going to get a chance at either a relaunch of a TV series or another movie here. I did want to also bring up that movie. Oh, you had something to add on Jackass still?
Well, no, what I was going to say to kind of finish your train of thought there is that would be one of my concerns. Is I think this film did really well, and they did a good job of acknowledging is there's a lot of nostalgia factor that goes into it. They talk about it being 10 years from the first time they shot the movie. I'm sorry. They talk about a segment where they're like, oh, I remember in Jackass 3 that it was 10 years from when we had done the first one. And now we're talking about 10 years since we had done that one. So it made the stunts more impactful. It made the camaraderie between the team just a little bit more close to home, I guess you could say, because it brought back a lot of great memories. But I would be concerned if this is something that we decide to do every single week or every 6 months. You've got a good mixture here of mixing nostalgia with insanity. Let's keep it that way.
Do you foresee a way, though, that any of the new characters that they introduced would end up being able to launch a new career for themselves, similar to the way that a Johnny Knoxville or a Steve-O or in a smaller, I guess, standpoint like a Bam Margera did?
Tough to see any standout guys. A lot of them seem like supporting cast or supporting actors, supporting characters, I guess you could say. Some great personalities, but I don't think it's going to be anything that can headline a major MTV show. If you were to ask me, wouldn't be surprised if they popped off with maybe TikTok videos and they're doing something along those lines.
That could work. You know what's
very camera focused, I guess you could say.
It's amazing to think about that original cast, and like they're just fucking rock stars, man. Like the fact that they transcend it's kind of like professional wrestling to me in a way, where it's like just a small amount of guys have such a natural charisma doing that kind of thing that are able to like transcend to that next level of stardom. And it's kind of what I've gotten, I think, with Jackass, or we've all gotten with Jackass, because the names I said, but then you do have like a Chris Pontius and like some of these other guys, a Wee Man, who established themselves. And it's amazing to think that like they transcended just being fucking idiots like the rest of us, hurting ourselves, laughing at each other, like as friends. Like they're just another form of frat boys that like got to that point. I think that's probably why they did it, is because we're all like relatable to it in some way, and we kind of grew up with them.
Yeah, we grew up with them. We're part of the group, right? You know, I made the joke of feeling like one of the guys. It really does feel that way. And the way that they shoot it, you know, Jackass has always been single camera, you know, maybe 2 or 3 cameras where they're getting multiple angles, but you're right there in the thick of things with them. So at times, if they're doing a stunt in a small room, it kind of seems like you're right there sitting on the couch. Wouldn't mind seeing some videos where maybe you can take part in a VR setting. Maybe that'd be something.
That'd be
maybe that's
crazy.
The next dynamic, right?
That's actually interesting. I did want to mention
maybe they send me something that'll flick my nuts at the same time that it's flicking their nuts. Who knows?
No, I can do that for you.
Hey, don't threaten me with a good time.
Are you familiar with the movie Moonfall?
No, I don't think so.
It's the Halle Berry movie that just came out in the movie theater last week. It has the dude, it probably says Patrick Wilson. Do you know who that is?
Donald Sutherland. You know me, dude. I'm a face guy.
Patrick Wilson, I think, is in The Conjuring. He's the guy in The Conjuring.
Oh, yes. Yep, you nailed it.
So Moonfall came out this weekend. It came out opposite Jackass. This movie had $140 million budget, and it only made $10 million.
Yeah, I mean,
launched
I'm looking
in
at
almost
the
same amount of theaters as Jackass did too.
Yeah, so I can see where most of their money went. You're talking, you got Michael Pena, who you might know from Ant-Man, Donald Sutherland, you might know him old school from Italian Job, John Bradley from Game of Thrones. So I could see where they threw their money. Kind of surprised that it wasn't a positive spin.
Yeah, that's just one interesting one. I'm surprised Halle Berry jumped in it, but you know what it probably was, is she needed something to do off of that Netflix movie, in terms of making money, and they probably offered her a shit ton of money. But the movie looked terrible. It got a C+ for a cinema score, and obviously it translated to nobody fucking wanting to see it. So that might be
Halle Berry,
in line.
2 for 2 on movies that people don't give a shit about.
When it's crazy, like it's like, dude, that's only the second month into the year, but I find it hard to believe that there's going to be a bigger bomb in this year than that movie. Maybe that's a hot take.
Yeah,
but that's
in dollars alone,
dude,
like
it is
just from the results.
If you make $10 million the first month or first week, there's just no way. Like Jackass would have been a disappointment. They had a $10 million budget. They probably would have been disappointed if they only made 10 million, you know?
Yeah. Like we made our money back. No, they knew that this was going to be something big.
So a couple other things on the box office. You had third in the box office this week was Spider-Man. It's no surprise there. Fourth, though, and some news tied to this, Scream is still fourth in the box office, and they are announced to be getting a sequel because it's been popular enough.
Wow. Okay.
So Nev Campbell
well, I mean,
is in negotiations.
You spoke very well of it. So
yeah, I mean,
no
like,
surprise there.
I think the entire franchise is good enough that like it's funny. It's in a multitude of ways, because their whole thing with Scream has always been that they, kind of a reflection on the tropes of horror movies and like movies in general. And they're kind of a trope on the idea that horror movies get bad after like the second one. They've been fairly consistent now for years.
Yeah, you could.
Hello.
Nailed it. No, that's good news. I still haven't had a chance to catch it, but it is something that I've wanted to watch just based on what you told me, and I did see some good reviews on it.
They're doing something interesting like next week where they're doing a single day where if you buy movies at AMC, like certain AMC theaters, they're doing like an extended version of the movie. It's like a one-day
Okay.
event, and then I think it comes out like next month on digital.
But I guess I'm curious how else, if you didn't buy that, how else would you see that extended version?
Well, I'm sure it's going to be in the digital version. They'll probably have an extended cut, director's cut or something like that. You know, another way to make more money off of it. One thing I remembered earlier and I was going to mention as far as movie theater experience goes, I got an early ticket to Batman.
Oh, you lucky dog.
It's only a couple days early,
that?
but I think it's like a Tuesday night, the week before it comes out.
That's actually pretty sweet. I'd be curious to see if maybe we do a first reaction video with you. Maybe you don't do a full breakdown, but might be something where we just get some get some quick insights from you.
You know what's kind of shitty though? Bought my ticket, and as I've already mentioned, I'm like an AMC member. Maybe they pressed because I didn't go to their little investors thing. I didn't go to their fucking Ponzi scheme. They I'm just gonna trash them now.
That's fine. Anyway, you own stock, dude.
They're charging me full price for the ticket. I have to go ask them what the fuck's going on.
Oh, they're probably like, oh yeah, you didn't show up to that meeting. So what we were mentioning at the meeting was that if you showed up, we'd pay for all of your tickets. But since you didn't, you're actually gonna have to pay for your first 12 movies of the year.
So $25 ticket, which is nuts. Am I right? Like that's kind of crazy. $25 just like, and I just want to see it and be like, yeah, I already saw it. Fuck you guys, you know?
Yeah, being able to catch it 2 days before anybody else has the chance to, I think I'd pay $25 for that.
It's like very much.
I might sneak in my own snacks though. Don't let them hear that.
Yeah. Fuck them, dude. I'm stacking the deck right in the belly region. I'm already big.
Well, I was gonna say we go with the old prison wallet. No,
no. I don't have room. I don't have room. Do you?
So I'm carrying everything else, dude. I don't have a handbag or a fanny pack.
Mine's packed already, dude. We're good.
Well, I'm a little concerned. Do we need to talk about the efficiency of how you're packing things?
But yeah, so I'm excited.
What else
for
is
that.
up, dude?
I'm excited for that. Let's get on to some other things here, Matt. It's cool because we don't actually have to stop. We can just have kind of congruent like thoughts and streamlined conversation here. It's nuts. So, do you want to? I want to get into something I'm like super excited for. And you just saw the trailer for it before we hopped on here. I'm constantly like the only one left in the world talking about The Walking Dead. We've gone over that a million times. I'm going to make you sit through it again. I'm sorry.
I told you, I'm happy to jump in that canoe with you.
Yeah, man. I'm going to tell you people out there, you people, again, watch the fucking show because this, Matt, do you agree? This 2-minute trailer was awesome.
Oh man. Like even if I hadn't caught up on the show, if I was someone that even watched, the first 4 or 5 seasons and you show me this trailer, I'm getting everybody together. I'm like, hey, we got to jump back in here. There's something good here.
Dude, it's like it's what I've been telling everybody this whole time. We're building to this like apex of all the shows merging together. We're building to the Commonwealth and like this huge showdown. And there's only like 16 to 20 episodes left of the main storyline of The Walking Dead, a show that I think is fair to say has been fairly iconic with the run it's gotten, and especially those early seasons, like you said, up to like 4 and 5. It's still there in terms of quality. And dude, like I am just the tension that was there. I thought the action and the way it was shot looked like really incredible, right?
It felt like a movie.
Yes.
That's like a little bit of a horror movie.
And so it's crazy because I see that, and then you have to realize they have like actual free feature length films that are on the way. And I think now, before it was supposed to go to the cinemas, I could very much so now just see it being, those properties will be big enough that a streaming platform would want to buy them up, right? Even like you talk about definitely. AMC Plus is their own streaming platform.
They have their own. Yeah, I was going to say they have their own service.
Yeah, you'd almost consider for them doing something directly through them, but then you're maybe limiting your platform that you're going to get to a little bit too much.
I think if in order for them to kind of stick the flag in it and say, hey, we're going to drive this service behind this, I think they'd need more content. I think besides The Walking Dead, AMC seems a little light in their content.
Do they still have Hell on Wheels? Is that still something on their show? on their
Dude,
network?
I haven't seen. Good pull. Would that do like 3 seasons back in 2015?
I don't know
What are we
why.
doing right now, dude?
Yeah, I don't know why I knew that one. I never seen a single episode of it either, and I don't think
Well, so
is
no, go ahead.
Yellowstone in like 19 in that show 18, 17 or whatever the spinoff, is that on there, or is
So
that
that was
on?
what I needed to check, but Yellowstone started on AMC and then got picked up by I think it's either Showtime or Stars. And I'll look that up in just a second. But
I think there's
while I'm
definitely a
looking that up,
spot like AMC like specific streaming platform. It's tough because to me right now it is just built on The Walking Dead.
yeah.
But the AMC is known for years and years for having good quality TV shows, dramatic
Yeah,
TV
and
shows.
that's I'm not saying that they don't necessarily have good shows. I just feel like for the last, and this could just be my ignorance, let's say the last 10 years, I feel like they've been really feeding into The Walking Dead. It's been, Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead, the Talking Dead show, Beyond the Walking Dead. Sorry. And let me know if you can hear my daughter. I feel like she's trying to break in the door to get over here to me.
Yeah, no, she's
got my own little Bailey
Bailey
situation.
snoring in the background over here. We just got our kids hanging out with us.
Yeah, dude, we're having fun. But I wanted to ask you this question. In watching that trailer, and interestingly enough, I've talked to a couple of people about The Walking Dead, people who have read the comics, but people who stopped watching the show. And I don't want to spoil anything, but after some pretty big events happen with Glenn, Maggie, obviously Rick. For anyone who's and maybe we've done this in the past, but for anybody who's on the fence, what's your elevator pitch or your statement on getting back in The Walking Dead, at least right now, because of what some of the work that they have coming down the pipeline?
I don't think we've definitely done it in a way in the past that, I stand by it. I think I have good taste. I genuinely think it is a good show. I do think it has some of the same faults that like a Game of Thrones had in a way, though, where things can sometimes be a bit dry and there can be some slower episodes that are mainly character driven and not a lot happen. But then as it builds to that point where you get this action build up or this action payoff rather, and it's always worth it in the end to me. I think some of the best seasons were to come later, past where people stopped watching. And I understand again, like I didn't watch Game of Thrones for like 9 years after the first season just because they killed Sean Bean. So I get that, like, spoiler alert, everybody's upset like after Glenn dies and they just kind of jump off the bandwagon on the show. I get it, man. Like you put in so much time into characters and like for me, it's like I don't even know why. To me, it was just with the Game of Thrones thing. I just thought it was stupid because Sean Bean was the show to me, and just to get rid of him. But at that point, I understood it more with Glenn because it's like 6 seasons of this guy. I think he stole most of our hearts as far as a character that we fell in love with because of this show. And I don't think we would have gotten the opportunity to fall in love with like Stephen Yeun, the actor, without The Walking Dead. And I understand why that was hard for a lot of people to get over, but I do think there are characters that come later in the show that I grow to like, even seeing like a person like Judith grow up. And like, I really do like that character. And Daryl is so interesting in the fact that they've written him for literally 10 seasons, 11 seasons, and made him what he is. I think that's one of the most impressive parts of the show as well. And I tune in every week looking forward to his storylines, into the Negan storylines. And like this upcoming season, you still have Maggie and Negan at play. And there's just a lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah, as someone who's recently caught up and had the chance to kind of go through the emotions with you, I know it took me some time to jump on, but watching this trailer and being able to see that there is going to be an addressed conflict between Maggie and Negan. You had thrown out some theories as to what you think might happen based on some of the lines in the comics, but that trailer does everything you need it to do to really build that anticipation that in some way, shape, or form, there's going to be retribution. We're just not really sure what form that's going to come in.
And I think something I appreciate about where we're going in this is that it has gone on forever, but at the same time, there's like a predicted ending in a way to it, right?
Yeah.
Some of the one complaint I think you could give something like Marvel, right, is that excuse me,
Good man.
You're always gonna like, how do you top Infinity War and Endgame in terms of scale, you know, like, and then once you go to
Yeah.
like Galactus and like the universe, how do you top that in scale? And I know they can do it in a comic book, but at some point, like, how does it not all feel the same in a movie realm? The thing I appreciate about this ending to The Walking Dead and where the movies are going to get us is this is as big, like the Commonwealth is as big in scale as they've ever come across. Like, this is an actual war. This isn't just two small groups of people fighting with limited like firearms and stuff like that. It's like, no, like this is an armored military, and like you're going to be seeing like a real conflict between a large group of two sides with two opposing beliefs, and like seeing Rick come back on the other side of it, I think it's going to be awesome. So that was a very long elevator pitch, but I still think there's time for a lot of people to hop on. Matt, you made the joke. The end of this trailer says the final season, part 2 of 3. It's like they've just dragged this one out.
Yeah, and that was kind of my last like little tidbit, and we can wrap it up there. But I do think it's interesting that they advertise it and make it seem like it has such finality, but they're like, no, it's just part 2. We've got another part coming. So a lot to look forward to there, man. I'm encouraging anybody who hasn't had an opportunity to hurry up and catch up, because like yourself, I'm interested to see where we're going.
For sure. So next up, we watched the kind of the trailer for the preview of the next year for Netflix, and what they're gonna have going on. And what was some of your like immediate thoughts from that, Matt?
So I thought that the cuts were interesting. I like what they did. It brought me back to watching like cable network television. And I don't want to give free advertisement, but let's take like the FX network. You know, they had those FX has the movies cuts where, you know, they're throwing out all the movies that we're used to seeing in theaters that we're finally going to get an opportunity to see on cable television. The one thing the big thing that stuck out to me was the star power from each of these previews. You know, I mean, we could go down the list of Kevin Hart, Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth. You know, these are all names that are obviously associated with Netflix, but to me, it lets me know that Netflix is really shelling out the big money. They're putting in some big projects. You know, people have always kind of questioned where's Netflix getting all their money from to invest in some of these projects. I just want to know what's the release pattern going to look like. I want to talk about it a little bit later when I talk about Book of Boba shortly, but you know, when we think about the amount of content that we're getting in, it's easy for some of these blockbuster quote unquote films that these networks are making to get lost by the wayside. We were talking about Yellowstone. Yellowstone used to be on AMC. It moved to Paramount, and it took moving to Paramount to really get big. I'm interested to see how they're going to release some of these films, because if you got Kevin Hart, you've got Chris Evans, you've got Charlize Theron,
Ryan Gosling, Jason Momoa.
Ryan Gosling. There's so many names. There's big names that it brought me back to when Apple started releasing TV Plus. I was like, okay, a lot of big names. Going to be interesting how you release all this. So, what was your first take?
So funny enough, I wrote very little in terms of notes off of it. One of the things that I did write though was that like you could literally see every single A+ celebrity in Hollywood on a Netflix program this year in some facet or another. And that is very impressive, obviously, just in the terms of scale of casting and like the reach that Netflix has now, and the money they must have coming in or be able to justify spending. Or are they just going to end up being like very in the red? I don't know. But one of the things that stood out to me prior to this, do you recall there being like a big like Netflix animated movie? I obviously know about like the Jurassic Park TV show, and I really like that, but I couldn't think of a Netflix movie that was animated that's been like wildly popular or big.
I can't think movie, but when I'm thinking of TV show, I'm thinking Arcane was their latest release that was kind of big, but that's from the Apex Legends series, I think, or Age of Empires. It's one of those. So that's been the only big animated thing that I've seen them do, but most of the stuff that they get is from DreamWorks or Sony.
I saw that there was one or two animated properties in the trailer there. and they looked like the animation looked really, really nice on it. And I just wonder if that's going to be a new kind of avenue for them that they haven't been able to hit on, because obviously I think from an animation standpoint, we just automatically think about Pixar at this point when we think about animated properties. But yeah, I'm intrigued by that a little bit. I don't watch a ton of animated movies any longer, so I might dabble in that if it's at all interesting. The other thing I kind of noticed on there, I guess, was Knives Out getting dropped to Netflix. I don't know if it's also going to have a cinema release, but I'm very surprised by that just because of how good the original movie is. I don't associate it with being something that would have made its way to that kind of platform, but maybe in response to like the HBO stuff and them having so many properties that Netflix went and bought something like Knives Out.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, did you catch that little, I guess that preview before seeing this Netflix preview? So did you see the Knives Out 2 video of Daniel Craig like looking off into the yonder while everybody's boarding?
I thought I had seen a still picture prior to seeing it in the Netflix thing, and that's why I was confused when. So the reason I even came across this Netflix trailer originally was actually Madeline Klein. I saw her thing pop up, and it was like Netflix, like with the eye emoji or whatever. And I was like, wait, what? And like they make you watch all the way to the end of the trailer, and I'm like, holy shit! Like they're putting Knives Out on Netflix. Yeah, that's kind of big news, man. Great movie. It's tough though when you're gonna have Murder Mystery 2 coming out on the same platform that you have Knives Out 2 coming out on. It's like you're kind of hurting yourself. You're hurting Adam there a little bit.
This is where I'm talking the oversaturation of content. Like you've got so much star power, you got so much film and series coming out, and she's just as excited as we are. Yeah. When you think about everything that they have coming, it's like, where are you going to put it all? Are you going to release a film every week? Is a show going to be released every 2 weeks or every month? I'm excited, but I'm walking hand in hand with concern here. I don't know more so just because of the experience.
I don't know if there's a release like window out there for how this is going to happen, because with the amount of movies they showed and the amount of stars they showed, I have to imagine we're getting one every week.
Because I was trying to count it out. I was like, all right, there's definitely more than 15 movies or / shows, whatever scenes being advertised here. Mm-hmm. So you got to think it's every week, every 2 weeks. And to your point, is Netflix in securing a project like Knives Out 2, are they saying, hey, this is how we're going to introduce ourselves to the big screen, or we're going to make it so that big screen films coming to streaming are going to be the next mainstream move?
All right. So we have like one or two more like pop culture things I kind of want to talk about before we get into a little UFC 271 preview / weekend preview, I guess, at the end here. So we both have checked out the Buzz Lightyear trailer, Matt, and I don't know how overly familiar you are with this movie at this point, but I did have a question for you. If you could try to clarify something to me.
I can certainly try, bud.
Is this like, so we watch Toy Story, right? And there's the kid, and then the kid has a toy that he doesn't know is a real thing that like speaks and talks, right? And then the toy also has its own backstory. And is this backstory like the story of Buzz Lightyear that got him popular to kids? Or is this like Buzz Lightyear supposed to be a real like person now? Can you explain that to me? I don't understand.
Yeah, so and this is me.
Actually, I'll add this real quick. The thing that threw me off to have this question was the little fucking cat, the little stuffed cat, because I'm like, well, that's just a toy. So Buzz Light, like the toys have toys. I don't get it.
This is where it gets really interesting, because when you're watching this trailer, there's a lot of little things being introduced. When you first see the spaceship, I don't know about you, I automatically assume, oh, that's the evil Emperor Zurg. Like, we're going to get a quick introduction to the bad guy. It didn't seem that way. It kind of seemed like there was a little bit of a syndicate going on where we were going to have a couple of different bad guys. So in the very little knowledge that I have, I've been adapting your lifestyle when it comes to headlines. I read the headline, read a little bit of the small print, and then I get out of there.
You don't even have to click on the link most of the time.
No, you get everything you need. As soon as the 3 dots come up, I'm like, I got everything I need.
Yeah.
it does seem to me like the Buzz Lightyear that we got in Toy Story was a toy based on a kid's television series. And what I think is happening is this Buzz Lightyear that we're getting with Chris Evans is kind of like your 20 years later, we're taking the kid show and we're turning it adult, not full on like dark adult, but we're turning it into, Buzz Lightyear having his own superhero lore, because he's not the only one with that really cool suit. So I'm wondering what in the story is going to make him the big guy. Like what makes him the big name, what makes him special. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's references for us from the Toy Story stuff, but I know that there was a TV show that the toy was based on in the original movie. So maybe it's a further development of that. Maybe I'm looking too much into it.
I think it's done a good job of making itself interesting, for being like a new and fresh way to take the Toy Story franchise, and feeling like it's something that's interesting enough to get people out there. At least I can say for myself that I'll want to see this, and it's without having like a Woody opposite Buzz or any supporting cast that we know. And to be honest, like none of the original cast that we grew to love back then, there's no Tom Hanks attached to this, at least from what we know right now. I imagine there could be some third wall breaking where he has like a Buzz Lightyear toy at the end.
Brother, I wouldn't be surprised if we get thrown into another multiverse and there's multiple Buzz Lightyears where Chris Evans and Tom Hanks have to talk to each other. But what I do like, and we can wrap it on this, is I think having a backstory for Buzz Lightyear is only right at this point, because in Toy Story 2, which is the best Toy Story in my opinion, we get a lot of the backstory. I agree.
I don't know if we've talked about that. I was actually having this ranking with somebody the other day, and I put Toy Story 2 as my first one.
Yeah, I've gotten some flack for that because a lot of people are like, how can you go over the original? And don't get me wrong, the original is great, but the second one is just that much greater.
It probably goes like 2, 1, 4, 3, right?
Yeah. I don't know. That's tough for me because I would say 1 and 4 are very close.
I agree.
Three's at the end for me for sure. Yeah.
So it's a clear cut like last place, and I think the top 3 are up for debate.
Yeah, you say that, but I think number 2 should kind of lock up that spot. I think 2 and 3 maybe move around a little bit.
There's certain things that are just, I guess the first 2 have way more to me like super memorable parts to it. That the fourth one, maybe just because I'm older, doesn't have the same like lasting power to me. But it's a great movie, especially for how far in the future it is to what the original was.
Yeah, and
I think you always have to give movies more credit the longer past the original source material they are, that they still produce a good movie that's in line with the quality of the originals. I always think you have to give extra credit there.
And you've credit to you because you've said that in the past when it comes to horror franchises, still being able to keep it together. It's one of the great things that they did in Toy Story 2 is they shed so much light onto the Woody story of, hey, he had his own fan base where back in the day TV wasn't really popular. There was only a few shows and networks. Woody was the thing. Whether you were an adult or you were a kid, people were watching it, right? And we got to get introduced to Jesse. We get introduced to Bullseye, that asshole with the pickaxe who deserved to die in that box. There's so many characters that we get introduced to that we love, that it sets up the rest of the franchise. So getting the idea that we're going to get some insight into how Buzz became this character, became this sellable action figure that took the world by storm, I'm definitely interested, man. You definitely picked the right person to play him too.
Yeah, Chris Evans is like definitely a huge appeal to the whole thing. He sounds the part. I don't know how difficult it is to sound the part, but he definitely does. So yeah, I think I'm definitely excited. So let's get into what we've been watching, Matt. I think a constant favorite for us. Do you want to go first? Or you'd like me to go first?
You jump in, man. I feel like I've been talking so much.
Have you?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I had some good news for you, dude.
Oh, you're about to mosey me up, aren't you?
I don't know what that means. You have the funniest terminology in the world, dude.
It's a Mattism, dude. They're gonna
one day, Matt. They're gonna go back and they're gonna make a Brendan Schaub like compilation for you about like sayings and phrases that you've just flipped on their fucking heads.
I look forward to it. I want to make it a yearly thing. I don't know. Put your brown nose up my butt. Is that what they say?
No, that's not it either, dude.
No. All right. How do you
Okay,
get a
so
brown nose? You stick it in my butt. Go ahead.
I've been watching a series that I'm losing you in the background a little bit there.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure that like when I move, I don't like fade out. Go ahead.
But yeah, I've been watching a TV series that you were mad at me for never having seen, and I've been trying to get through it. So I've been on Netflix, and
I feel like there's so many.
I've been watching The Punisher
Oh,
recently.
that's good.
Yeah, so
Talk to
I'm
me.
on like episode 6, I think, of the first season.
Okay.
And it's been
I
mostly,
think it's 8 episodes that first season.
I think it's been mostly boring with a couple like high points to me. Are we far enough in the past that I can just kind of talk freely about it?
Yeah, that show's been wrapped and done with. They're not even like in production anymore. So I feel like if you haven't watched it, you probably should.
So I'm interested in the redhead girl from Daredevil and his like storyline together. Um, she's very much like I given him fuck me eyes, and he's very much like I don't fuck people unless they're maybe the wife of this guy that I'm tag teaming with. Um, and
Careful,
then
buddy. You're talking about his honor right now, Frank Castle's honor.
so the episode I just watched has been probably the best one of any of the episodes I've seen so far. It's when he goes to see the guy in the woods that was in his army unit that filmed that video of the dude getting killed or whatever, or getting tortured. And they
It's
just have
crazy
a
how much I
standoff.
vividly remember that show.
Yeah. Do you?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like they have that.
it's one of my favorites that Netflix put out, honestly, because I just think John Bernthal
He's
just
really
locked
good.
into that character so well.
Yeah, he's definitely very, very good. Yeah, so I that episode's really interesting. Obviously, like if you remember it clearly, it's a lot of action, and I think that's where the parts in the show that I really do like. And I watch horror movies, so I guess I don't have a problem with brutality, but I'm not like a person who looks for like over the line or anything. And I think this teeters just good enough on like how physical it gets at times. When he is torturing the dude inside his house at the beginning. Was the police chief or whatever it is, right?
Sheriff, I think.
Maybe, yeah.
Something like that.
Either way, some authority figure.
Yeah, you're fine.
Like I like that scene a lot as well. So I'm definitely gonna keep watching. I'm making my way through it slowly, just because the episodes are a little bit dry in some regards at times. But
yeah, so I think that
it's a lot like The Walking Dead.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that show. I'm not surprised by your kind of synopsis of it, is because it is very much like The Walking Dead, where there's a lot of buildup. It always feels like something is about to happen without it actually happening.
Exactly.
Even the part where he's walking into the woods to meet his guy, it always felt like there was a trap there to me. Like I felt like somebody was setting him up. There's always like this company. Yeah, that there's always this company in the background. That it really heightens the senses while you're watching it, that you do kind of feel a little bit demoralized when something doesn't happen. But they do they do a great job of when the scenes get to that point of needing to showcase that gore, they do a good job of it.
Yeah, I mean, you said 8 episodes in the first season, so I'm getting towards the end of it here. I'm gonna keep going through. I think part of it was I actually started watching a little of Daredevil again as well. And I that was probably spawned by something we never talked about, which is Hawkeye, and seeing the return of Kingpin. So I think there's just been kind of a trickle down effect between Spider-Man reintroducing Charlie Cox and everything else. So
I think that's a really good way to do it, though. If you kind of wanted to invigorate yourself enough to watch the show, because it's an origin story, it takes a little while to get into. But the Charlie Cox, John Bernthal dynamic as Daredevil and Punisher brought me back to comic book days. Like it really felt like when Frank Castle first calls him Red, you're like, oh, like that's a good feeling right there.
There's still
I have to
time
stop
we might
moving
get
because it's going to keep blurring.
we might get them back. Charlie Cox, I think I read today that there's something big being planned for him as far as his next role within Marvel. So you never know. I think John Bernthal is in a position where he's a big enough actor that if he wants to play the role again, Marvel can find a way for him to play the role. And I think he's respected and appreciated enough from an acting credibility standpoint that like you can put him in that role again. I think it was a bigger reach for them to go back to Charlie Cox, like who is great in the role, but obviously doesn't have like some massive star power at this point. You
He
know,
doesn't have a lock on the role, so to speak, as
yeah.
we're talking like
If they want to go to the
an
movie theater, they
RDJ,
could
so
have
to
always
speak.
gone with a guy like a la Ben Affleck. You know,
Don't you ever,
dude, that'd
don't
be
you?
sick, dude. If the multiverse,
No,
if the
no,
multiverse
no,
reintroduced because like the Batflack's done, if we reintroduce Ben
no.
Affleck as Daredevil, oh, actually, I've sold myself, dude. Can I get an honest opinion out there from the people? If they told you that like somehow they absorbed Ben Affleck into the Marvel universe to play Daredevil again, we wouldn't be a little excited by it. Come
This is
on,
where you start
guys. It's
losing.
the
This is where you
Batfleck.
start losing our fans. Everybody's going to be like, "This guy's out of his mind. You off your wits, bruv."
I'm trying to figure out how it's the Ben Devil, the Dare Flack.
The bat flack. The bat flack.
Well, I don't think he's a Batman anymore, so you can't call him the
Oh, you're talking
Bat.
about Daredevil. No, yeah, he's
Yeah.
not Daredevil anymore either, dude. We're not calling him that.
Well, he's gonna be back. He's gonna play him again
No,
because now that I've introduced this to the world, our huge audience in Nicaragua is gonna get behind this, and they're gonna send it to the moon, baby.
it's the law of attraction, man. I don't like what you're doing. You're using your power for evil, and I don't think that's okay.
You give me too
Charlie
much
Cox
power,
will,
man.
as
No,
of right
no one
now,
man.
be my Charlie Cox will, as of right now, stay my Daredevil. I look forward to seeing if John Bernthal makes an appearance as the Punisher. But I'm glad to see that you're trekking through it, man. Maybe we will eventually talk about Hawkeye because the introduction of Kingpin, really cool. Spoiler, 3, 2, 1, whatever. Lenny already did it, but a lot of
No
things
fucks
to look
given.
forward to from that show.
Dude, so
Um,
we've fought it for long enough. We fought the bounty law, and the law is gonna win. So
uh,
Book of Boba, baby, hit us with it.
I hate your guts, man. I missed the boat, and I'm sorry for anybody who's listening to this. I didn't really put together a full synopsis the way that I wanted to, but I'll run through a quick spoiler-free version, and then I want to reference. I had the opportunity to check out Rambling with Anthony and Hey Archer, and
Ooh.
got some insights into how they were feeling about the show. And because I can't get Archer on here right away, I figured I'd just throw some of my thoughts out there. But for the last 2 episodes prior to the season finale, we got, instead of it being the Book of Boba Fett, it might as well have been Luke and Grogu take Tatooine, whatever you want to call it. We had the Mandalorian come back, so we got basically 1.5 episodes of the Mandalorian, which I'm sure people loved.
Wow.
I know I did. We got a
It
nice.
sounds like I did too.
Yeah, I saw you get excited there, dude.
I did,
Is that the
dude. You got the
microphone? Or are you just
Mandalorian.
excited to see me?
That was in the cards, people.
Yeah.
When I was thinking when I went Punisher, I almost went Mandalorian.
Well, it is interesting to see that now we're getting, rather than getting a storyline of Boba Fett and the progression of Boba Fett, where he's just kind of fallen to the backside, and we're being told that a war is coming. He's got to gather muscle. Spoiler alert: Mandalorian, Din Djarin, I think is what we're calling him, Mando. He is going to visit the kid, aka Grogu, aka Baby Yoda. And I don't want to spoil it for people. I want people to actually be able to experience that episode and the things that transpire. But there's a lot of great dialogue, a lot of references to old Star Wars lore as far as the prequels and sequels. We get the return of 3, 2, 1 spoiler, Ahsoka Tano, who's played by Rosario Dawson. She made an appearance in The Mandalorian, blew things up. This show has done a good job of just making people not really care about it being about Boba Fett. I think because it's an origin story, people are really expecting this show to be action after action. They want to see Boba Fett in all his glory, killing people, collecting bounties. And fortunately, but unfortunately for Star Wars fans, Book of Boba Fett isn't that. It is an origin story in its entirety. From episode 1 to episode 4, you're getting a character a character building of Boba Fett to be someone who we don't know anymore. He's gone from being a ruthless bounty hunter to being a caring protector and enforcer for the people. A lot of people don't like that. A lot of people say they don't care that he's, being adopted by Tusken Raiders. I don't think that this show has gotten a fair shake. And that's me saying that. I'm usually pretty tough on these shows. I think that the Book of Boba Fett, if you had realistic expectations, is everything that it should be. It helps give you some insight into how he survived, how he became the person that he is in The Mandalorian. And then we get all these cool characters in between. We get Fennec Shank, we get the Black Chrysanthemum, we get the little motorcycle crew of cyborgs. All of this stuff should be enough to keep the people happy, but I'm hearing through the grapevine that it's not. And I had the opportunity to listen to Rambling with Anthony and Hey Archer, and they love the Grogu and Luke stuff. They love Mandalorian getting his 1.5 episodes, but they're not huge fans of Boba Fett. And I would simply just ask, what are you expecting from an origin story? That's the question I'll pose, but I don't want to be too harsh.
Well, it is. I think it's been proven now that like it's hard to really make an origin story stand out any longer, I suppose. And I think it's going to be even harder in a franchise such as Star Wars, where I know like the fans are never overly critical of like the properties and like are never way too invested into it, and like, you know, can't just appreciate a little surface level, you know, stuff on it, right?
I just remember
that's not the Star Wars
man,
fans though. I'm saying like they're not like that. So
yeah, I just remember a great man coming into a certain studio and saying, we as fans have to be okay with things, A, not being canon, and B, not going the way that we expect them to. And a lot of the feedback that I hear is that we're not happy that, you know, the character's not doing the things we expect them to. We're not happy that we're not seeing a bunch of action. I think Filoni and Favreau have done a great job at putting these storylines together. Now it's just a matter of trusting them and hoping that the content that we're going to get in the future is going to live up to it. But I said it from the beginning, right here, well, not here, there, in Good Taste Studios. Right, too much Star Wars content is going to create a problem. It's going to create an issue where we're so concerned with how everything ties into the storylines, how everything's going to progress, that we just don't sit in place and let the development come to us. If
we can't just kind of enjoy the story. Yeah.
No, and it makes it difficult.
Now.
Yeah. I think, you know, we watch everything with a critical eye, and we're so quick into tuning into what's actually coming that we're not focusing on what's happening. And I think that this show deserves a little bit more than it's getting.
So the ball's in your court now, Archer and Anthony. What say you? How do you respond, gentlemen?
I may have thrown out some gauntlets through some text messages, so it'll be interesting to see what these next couple of weeks bring. But I'm interested to talk it out. Let's see what happens.
Let's make the movement to get Matt on the show to talk about this in person with these guys. Let's make that move.
Yeah, we'll see.
Anywho, let's move on here. Matt, you want to tee us up for this weekend's fights?
Yeah, it's only right. And my baby got just excited as I did. So we're talking UFC 271, Len, and it's going to be headlined by two big fights.
Star, dude.
Yeah, I figured Bailey always gets some love, so we might as well give young Sophia Milan some love. Say hi, Soph. No? Okay, well, cool. So we're talking UFC 271, and we're talking a big heavyweight fight between Derek Lewis and Tai Tuivasa. Both of these guys are known for their knockout power, so we're not expecting that one to go the full 5 rounds. So we're also going to be looking at the co-main event. We've got I got a little bit distracted by the cuteness.
Dude, so young Soph can't hear me, right?
She can't hear you.
Good. So the only story that I really have to talk about here, does she like 2 hand waves? Hello. The only story that I think we need to talk about from this fight as of right now is the fact that Tai Tuivasa said that he wants to do a shoey from the cup of Derek Lewis.
Oh no!
Did you read that?
No, I didn't read that, but I saw Derek Lewis was like, I don't get the point of a shoey, man. I don't want some guy's sweaty feet in my mouth, let alone be spitting into it and all the other stuff, dude. Yeah, I would imagine that Derek Lewis is grossed out by all this, but this also might be like a dominance play by Tai Tuivasa from this one.
Dude, I don't know if would you want, after you lose to some dude, would you really want to have to like drink from his jockstrap?
Oh, well, that's the thing. I don't think Tai Tuivasa plans on losing.
I mean,
I think
sure.
he plans. What if he knocks out Derek Lewis and then goes down in his pants, pulls out his cup, and then just does the shoey direct, or a cuppy, I guess you would have to call it, directly from there.
It'd be a weird 12 months then, just based off of the fact that like Izzy humped Paulo Costa like 10 months ago in the octagon, and now we're gonna end up with like a man grabbing another man's jockstrap out of his pants and drinking from it live on TV. And how actually don't by the way, I haven't won a cup in like 15 years, probably less than that, but they have like little holes in them normally, don't they? Like little breathing holes.
I would really hope that they're using jock shorts at this point, where like you have the shorts that you slip on, you just put the cup in.
Remember Rogan always used to talk about the tie cup, the metal one with the strings.
Yeah.
Maybe they're using. I don't know if Derek Lewis is using that. But
Well,
I think it's gross because it's like Derek Lewis is like, my balls is hot, and it's like you're gonna go put that in your mouth.
Well, I mean, I don't know, man. What's worse, ball sweat or feet sweat?
This question is old as time, man. I think it's probably.
You're gonna have to put that.
I think it's probably ball. I don't know, dude. Because you sweat more from your feet, probably at the end of the day. But
like, think about it.
Balls are a little
bit
more personal, dude.
When you do a detox, you like there's detox that you do that start from your feet. I've never detoxed from my balls before, dude. So I would imagine,
what are you
like,
talking about, you detox from your feet. Like, what does that mean?
Oh, so we were talking about pedicures and manicures on the episode that didn't get a chance to air.
Yeah.
So when you do like a foot soak, they soak all your feet and they put like some soap in it, and it cleanses all the toxins from your body, bro.
Are you talking about what's that salt?
Rock salt?
No. What's that salt that everybody uses?
Rock salt in there. Epsom salt?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that what you're
for
saying?
Good soaking, dude. I don't know if that's what they use, but I am imagining that there's probably more bad stuff in your feet than there is in your balls. I'm just gonna say that.
You're probably. I hope you're right.
But neither here nor there, dude.
Actual thoughts on the fight. Who's winning?
Co-main event. We got Derek Lewis versus Tai Tuivasa. I think it's pretty easy here. Derek Lewis doesn't lose unless you're a champion or you're the number one contender. And Tai Tuivasa, while I love him, he's got a great personality. He knocked out Greg Hardy, so he's always going to get double bonus points in my book.
Big fucking hero.
I just don't think you get through Derek Lewis in a 3-round fight, let alone a 5-round fight, because this is a guy who can lose a fight for 3 rounds and still be just as dangerous in that 4th and 5th round, where Tai has always shown that he doesn't really have the gas tank in those 2nd and 3rd rounds. First time going in the championship rounds too.
You know, I think the tough thing is, you know, you mentioned the Greg Hardy fight, and yes, he won, but he got rocked in the Greg Hardy fight too. And
I know he did.
Makes me a little nervous that, like, you know, he's gotten rocked a few times in his career. I think it's going to be competitive. I think he'll land big on Derek Lewis a couple times, but like you, I agree. I think Derek Lewis is taking this one. I actually think it's probably going to early finish here. I'm going first round Derek Lewis KO.
Oh, you think they're coming out swinging? Well, I'm not going to disagree with you there. I think that one probably isn't going to the judges for sure. I think we'd be lucky if we get it past the 2nd round. Hopefully they come out swinging. Should be interesting.
One thing before we get to the main event, and we don't have to spend any time on this at all, but so Derek Brunson is fighting this weekend. Did you see the headline today that he said he's only fighting 2 more times, win or lose, and he's retiring?
So I did see that. We've seen that before. Do you think that's a contract ploy?
What pull does he have? He'd be better off letting his contract run out and then go to Bellator and be a champion and get paid big money to go fight there.
So you say this, but he's been someone who's derailed a couple of hype trains. Mm-hmm. And when you think about him possibly going in there, fighting a guy like Jared Cannonier, who they've been trying to set up for a title shot, right? They've been trying to set him up against Izzy. If he goes in there and derails this hype train, they don't give him a title shot. He has to fight one more time and fights out his contract. He's going to single-handedly clear out that middleweight division. So it gets really interesting when you talk about a guy like Derek Brunson, because if he goes to somewhere like Bellator or PFL, they don't really have the middleweight contenders that you're going to see in the UFC.
The depth,
and
exactly.
I
think that's where it's like, you know, it is tough though to say go to Bellator because you're going to face Mousasi, and I think Mousasi is a tough matchup for.
He's locking it up over there. I don't see him beating Gegard, but if you look at his last 4 wins or his last 3 wins, you're talking Darren Till, Kevin Holland, Edmund Shabazian. All three fights where those guys were going into that fight expecting to get a W and be propelled on to stardom,
Yeah.
he stopped all of them.
Yeah, I'm taking Brunson this weekend.
Yeah, I think that's probably right up there with one of the easier picks of the night.
See, I don't know
So
about that
let's
just because Cannonier versus Whitaker wasn't like a blowout. It was a great performance by Robert Whitaker, but Cannonier's good, but Brunson I think has evolved a bit.
if and I'm vaguely remembering that fight, but Whitaker was getting caught with a lot of big shots. But when it came to setting up his combinations and landing strikes, even when Jared tried to press him up against the cage, being the bigger guy, Robert Whitaker was still able to dictate the tempo of that fight.
For sure.
Derek Brunson being a very powerful grappler, it's going to be tough for him to make moves on that one. But I
So
don't chalk that up as a non-interesting fight. I do think it could get interesting.
looking at the middleweight division, obviously the main event this weekend has big stakes in that division. It's the championship. It's a huge rematch, I think, between, to me personally, the two best guys in the division. I'm long time been a Robert Whitaker fan. I think he's amazing. Obviously, Izzy
Bobby
at this
Knuckles.
point, Izzy's infallible at this point. Like, probably second best middleweight of all time, just because that Anderson run is so goated at this point. He's on his way,
Yeah.
Bear in mind also, like, Anderson, even though it's not just at middleweight, but it's like he didn't lose when he went up to. Granted, he didn't face the champion, so it's tough.
Well, here's the caveat, I guess you could say, with Anderson Silva. Is Anderson Silva came into the UFC with losses on his record and kind of set up this aura of invincibility as soon as he got into the UFC. When we look at Izzy brought his O from kickboxing when he took a couple of losses, but he brings his O for MMA into the UFC and didn't lose it until a title fight against Jan Blachowicz, which was, to your point, outside of his own division. So that both legendary runs, but Izzy's still well on his way. What are your thoughts going into this fight?
A couple early things, like prior to the actual getting into the breakdown of the fight itself, that I find interesting is, like, comparatively, I think you're right. And Izzy, I think on the build up to the championship, did go into the matrix and did have some amazing moments. But you've seen in the past couple fights where he slowed down a little bit here, and he's admitted in the past week that to being bored during the Jan fight and being a little bored during the Vettori fights. And I think you can kind of see it in some ways in the performance and not getting the finish. But I think Anderson suffered from the same stuff, and at some point it hindered Anderson's ability to continue ascending as a popularity and as a figure. And I hope Izzy doesn't run into the same pitfalls here. I think this Whitaker fight is the right type of fight to get him back to that, because Whitaker is so competitive and because Whitaker is going to be good enough to go in there and get him to engage. I think we have a barn burner on our hands this weekend. The one other thing I just noticed personally today, as I was kind of prepping to hop on here with you, I was looking at the videos for Embedded this week, which I haven't watched in a while. And
Yeah, it's been a while for me
normally
too.
you can get a good indication of the buzz around a fight based off of what they do. And both of the videos, the first one came out a day ago when I watched it, and it was already over 1 million views. The second one came out within the past like 20 hours, and it was almost at 1 million views. So I think it just
Wow.
kind of
Okay.
caught me off guard, because I maybe I've underestimated where Izzy has grown to in terms of his popularity level. And I shouldn't be surprised in a way, because we both know casual people that are fans of Israel Adesanya. And
Yeah.
I think he needs a couple more of those fights. Obviously, the Jan thing kind of hurt that transcendence to that next level. It hurt the chances of a John Jones fight and all of this. But a good win here over Robert Whitaker, a finish, I think goes a long way to getting back on track for that level.
Yeah, and just a little bit, because I love the point that you made there when you think about Israel's stardom. We talked about him being a superstar before the Jan fight, and we maybe as being the following fans that we are, the diehard fans that we are, I use that term loosely sometimes because I feel like UFC and MMA takes a back seat for us sometimes, but Israel's stock hasn't gone down after that loss. If anything, the shit talking between him and Marvin Vittori might have made it interesting. I see the camera going over there.
So I'm just gonna I'm gonna go away from video for a second, guys. But I'm still here if you can carry us for a sec, Matt.
Yeah, I got you, buddy. If you look at his performance against Marvin Vittori, there was a lot of shit talking going into that fight. Marvin talking about he had the game plan to beat Jan or to beat Izzy after the fight with Jan. And Izzy didn't really blink. He talked a lot of shit about saying he already owned a W against this guy, no matter how close they thought it might have been, it being a split decision. But to your point, there were a lot of instances where Izzy has seemed like he's not 100% interested. When you mentioned the first fight with he and Robert Whitaker, there's the classic clip of him standing in the octagon, coming out for round, I think it's 4, maybe even 5. And he says, I'm ready to die in here. And he really showed that championship heart. He showed that he was ready to put it all on the line. When I think about Anderson Silva had some highlight moments, the knockout of James Irvin, the knockout of Chris Lieben, the finish of Rich Franklin. It was very easy for him to find things boring if he wasn't able to drive and get the finish. But Anderson had the benefit of moving up a couple times to light heavyweight in instances where he fought, again, mentioned James Irvin. He fought Forrest Griffin in one of his biggest highlight reel knockouts. He's had instances where he's moved up and was able to still carry on that dominance. It is interesting to see, although Israel lost to Jan for the title, if he gets back up there to 205 and does fight a guy, I mentioned him fighting a guy like Johnny Walker just to see where he fits in from a size perspective. There are interesting matchups for him. And if he can continue the same level of dominance that he's shown at middleweight in fights against Robert Whitaker, in fights against Calvin Gastelum, Paulo Costa, he's had his moments where he's been that highlight reel guy. It's just going to be interesting to see what he does, because right now the middleweight division isn't as stacked as we'd like it to be. We were talking about Derek Brunson kind of laying out all of the big hype trains going into that division. There's only so many big fights at 185 pounds for Israel Adesanya. So he's got to find a way to navigate this rough water, get through Robert Whitaker and make it up to 205. But that's not going to be easy when we're talking about Robert Whitaker, whose only loss in the past, I want to say it's like 6 years, was to Israel Stylebender Adesanya.
Thank you for covering for me there, buddy. I missed some of it, but a hell of an effort nonetheless. I'll pick up where you kind of finished off there with Robert Whitaker, though. These past couple performances, especially the Darren Till one, just in terms of showing a little bit of a growth in we already knew this about Robert Whitaker. Like, he can be very technical, but he's also fallen into having to get into barn burners with like the likes of Yoel Romero. And the fights were amazing, but not great in terms of longevity. And I think that's what kind of led to the Izzy fight with him getting knocked out. He just gets a little over aggressive at times and leaves himself open. He managed to go a full 5 rounds with Darren Till in this fight that was like just tension at all times. It wasn't like this all-time volume, but it was just every strike was thrown to kill. And there was so much technique and high-level shit happening that it kind of showed an evolution. And I think that Cannonier fight even more so, where you're like, he was just constantly in control. Am I wrong? He also beat Gastelum.
Yeah,
he did beat Gastelum, right?
Yeah,
in another performance that was just very
yeah, that's actually his last performance.
Yeah,
5-round unanimous decision, but dominated the fight.
Yeah. So I am honestly, I want to see Robert Whitaker get the job done here. I really, really like the guy in terms of his fighting style, and I've just always appreciated him. But unfortunately, it's hard for me to go against Izzy at this point. So I think, me personally, I'm gonna side with Izzy in a much more competitive fight. You throw yours out there, and I'll come back to me on whether or not I think the finish is going to come.
Yeah, so I think that Robert Whitaker puts it all on the line, to your point, in all of his fights. Very few times have we seen Robert Whitaker. I mean, the guy fought through, 2 torn ACLs in the Yoel Romero fight. Doesn't leave a lot in the octagon. So when you think about a caliber of fighter like that, it's very easy to think that it's going to be a back and forth fight. And with that being said, Israel Adesanya usually wins those fights. So I think I'm taking a 4th round finish in favor of Stylebender. The champion stays champion, and Robert Whitaker, unfortunately, just is that number 2 guy in that division.
Yeah, I think you're right. Around the 4th round is where I'd anticipate it as well. If there's an over or an under on this and it's like 2.5, I'm going to go over on the rounds. I think it'll get into the back half of the fight. I just believe in Izzy being a real sharpshooter and in being able to hit the chin of Robert Whittaker. And I've seen where Robert Whittaker can go down. Whereas Izzy, I have not seen get rocked. He said it himself with the Jan fight. He's like, you saw me get control, but you never saw me get hurt. Like, he felt my power and he got hurt. I never was wobbled once. And I think that I haven't rewatched the fight, but I believe that to be true if I remember back on what that fight really was. And I have to believe the same thing here, where I don't think that Robert Whittaker will do anything to really be able to hurt him. So it's going to come down to strategy. If Whittaker can put it all together, he can get the job done, but I'm going to lean towards a finish in the later half of the fight by Israel Adesanya.
No, it's a great pick, man. And I don't think anybody would argue with you. I do think we're in store for a really, really competitive fight. I think both of those guys go out there and get it done. It's just going to be one of those classics. And we have to remember that this is only the second time that these guys are fighting. So I had mentioned that I didn't think that the depth was there for the middleweight division. I would be hard pressed to say that you disagree.
I think I think the top 10 in the middleweight division is all pretty good. I mean, like, Kelvin Gastelum's at like ranked 9th, and you saw what he did fighting Israel Adesanya. I think on a good day, anybody in the top 10 there can pretty much hang with the rest of them. Vittori's shown what he can do. Darren Till is amazing. I love him from a technical standpoint. I don't think we've seen the best of him yet. You even have guys like last weekend, you had Hermanson fight Sean Strickland, and like that's the guys rounding out your top 10, not only your top 5. So I think right now the UFC is in a great spot where there's a lot of divisions that have been rejuvenated. You look at flyweight, you look at lightweight, light heavyweight, which for the past 10 years I think was their hardest division to find stars in. Yuri Prochaska, and then obviously Glover Teixeira making the evolution and the step into a champion that he's made. There's a lot of talent across the board. But with that being said, UFC 271 is not the only major event happening this weekend. We have a big football match, right, Matt? There's a big old football match happening this weekend.
You talking Man City? Yeah, Man City play on Saturday.
Oh,
no, wait, you're talking American football. You rat bastard. All right, you almost got me. Yeah, as some would say, it's the biggest event of the year in sports and entertainment. The halftime shows are huge. The commercials are incredible. And we're talking about the Super Bowl, Len. We got the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. What's your take on it?
You know, you might have to pull my man card a little on this one, if I'm being honest, buddy, because I'm honestly, I don't know if I'm going to watch it or not, if I'm just telling you the truth. Yeah, right there. Perfect. Swallow it like a key. I'm not overly interested. I've shared with you privately, and I might have said this last week when we didn't have an episode come out, but
the dark tapes. Yeah, you said it last week.
I haven't watched football. Like, I just haven't been watching the playoffs very much at all. I've caught the end of some of the games, and don't get me wrong, like, the star power has been on point this year. The games have been fantastic. I'm intrigued. I like Joe Burrow a lot. Like, I love seeing what he's kind of growing into. I'm heavily invested in Jamar Chase, so I'm a big fan of him and where his career is kind of going. I like T. Higgins a lot coming off of last year, and this year he's once again proven to be great. So you're like slowly merging into us.
I'm like fading into black.
Yeah, so I think, long story short, I probably will end up watching it, but I just don't have the level of interest that I have had in years past. And like, maybe, I don't know if that's like a COVID thing. It's taken away from as much happening around like going out and watching the game like at people's houses. I feel like you just don't have as much of that going on. I know it does happen, but it used to be like I would already know what I was doing. You know?
Yeah, it was more of an event back in, we'll say when the world was normal. But I think that there's an interesting dynamic because there's a lot of storylines in this Super Bowl with, you mentioned Joe Burrow being a big name, being the first guy to win a national title and then win a Super Bowl and the Heisman Trophy within like a 3-year period or something like that. But then you've also got on the other side, Matthew Stafford, who was part of a terrible organization in the Detroit Lions.
0-16,
comes over to LA. Yeah, comes over to to the LA Rams, and in his first season is able to not only have be part of one of the greatest wide receiver seasons ever, but takes his team to a Super Bowl and can kind of prove whether or not he's the guy who can get it done. With all these storylines, it doesn't seem as interesting as years past. And maybe we're saying that because we're Patriots fans, I made the joke that as Patriots fans, we don't really watch too many Pro Bowls or have our players in Pro Bowls.
We're all proud to be like Mac Jones stole the show.
Yeah, I love the fact that he ran 60 yards to Gritty and it counted for nothing.
Yeah, but it was still like the most boss move there. So
Well, no, that's the thing is it was the most popular and biggest highlight moment of the Pro Bowl, and the Patriots stole the show.
I like what the Pro Bowl does is like a politicking thing, because like you had Chandler Jones being like, I really like that guy Mac Jones, and I'm like, hey, maybe look, we rekindle that relationship and we get a year or two out of like, Chandler Jones being like, I want to win a championship. I don't really, although he seems pretty invested in his individual performance more than like a team thing, but you hope
Not only that,
get paid
they've
and all
built they've built that defense around him. But
Yeah.
you're right there. But yeah, I won't take your man card away. I'll just put it like this: as someone who's been watching the games, they've been interesting. I love what's going on both sides. It's difficult to pick a person as a neutral party, but I'm going to go with the turnaround story of from the worst team to the best team, from being the best player for what felt like 15 years on a team that didn't even really deserve to play against a college football team. It's great to see Matthew Stafford doing the damn thing with the Rams, and he's going to get a chance to do it at home because the Super Bowl's in SoFi Stadium, which is pretty nuts.
So you're taking the Rams.
I'm going with the Rams, buddy.
Okay. So I'm on the opposite side here. I've seen the resiliency what the Bengals have had from afar. I've caught the end of their games. Like I saw the end, obviously, of the KC game, and I just think that Joe Burrow's got some type of moxie about him, and that offense is good enough to keep up in terms of a scoring pace that they're going to need to keep up with. Obviously, the biggest concern being on the defense and an offensive line, with like an Aaron Donald coming off the line there and a Von Miller. Obviously, that's a huge issue, but the fact that Joe Burrow was able to get sacked 9 times and still win a football game just kind of shows what he's all about. And though I love Matt Stafford, he will at some point in the latter half of this game make a mistake that either puts it away for them or brings the Bengals back into it, and we see an epic finish. And I'm excited for that. But I'm pulling for the Bengals. They're my team.
You make a lot of valid points. I would just point out that the Kansas City Chiefs defense nowhere near as good as the Rams defense, and for Matthew Stafford to make one, maybe even two mistakes, at the end of the day, defense wins championships. These guys can put up 30 points each, but it's going to come down to that fourth quarter if they are close. And I don't think you take anything away from that defense.
Sure thing. It's going to be exciting nonetheless. So anything else you're going to be watching or keeping an eye out in the upcoming week or so?
I don't know, man. There's quite a bit going on. I am interested to see what's going to be dropping next week on Disney Plus now that the Book of Boba is done.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to see what's going to be dropping there. But no, I don't really have much else going on. What about you, my man?
So I already said I'm going to be watching a bit of The Punisher, obviously. I believe, I don't know what comes out in the movie theater this week. Next week we got Uncharted, so I don't know that I'll be seeing anything this week from the movie theater. I think, going to be buying Dying Light 2. And I'm going to be playing a little bit of co-op on that, I believe. So I'm excited about that. It seems interesting. I really liked the first game. I'm going to be making an effort to be streaming more often. So keep an eye out on our YouTube page. My goal is to do it through YouTube. Just seems to make sense. It's a smaller pond as far as gaming, and also obviously we have a small established little thing going on there already. So keep an eye out for updates on that front. But yeah, I think I'm going to be investing in Dying Light and giving that a shot.
Yeah, so stay tuned for GTG, Good Taste Gaming, coming to you soon.
I kind of like the little branding you just did, dude.
Just drop the gem, bro.
I like that shit.
Who knows? All right, we'll get a little logo thing going. All right, so you guys have heard what we're excited for. Obviously, we know that you guys are excited to tune in here every single time. I know it's a little bit different this time. We went digital. That's right. We're in the future now. Mm-hmm. But where can they find us on the socials, Len?
So as always, you can swing by our Twitter and check out Good Taste Live. I think Matt and I can both admit that we've been a little laxed as of late. But keep an eye out. We're always trying to get more involved on that side of stuff. And maybe we'll see you this weekend between UFC 271 or the Super Bowl. Maybe you'll see some funny comments coming out from that platform from us. Matt, can they find us on Instagram?
Yeah, you damn right they can, buddy. They can find us on Instagram at For Those With Good Taste. You said it, buddy. We've got plenty of events coming on, so we'll hopefully be dropping some art, some memes. We'll drop some polls. We're hoping to have a lot of things for you guys to look forward to. But then they can also listen to the audio version as well as the video version. Video version can be found on our YouTube channel at For Those With Good Taste. And then we're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Google Play Store. We're on Spotify, even though there's a bunch of shenanigans going on over there.
We're not pulling our
but then-
pod because Matt supports the N-word.
Bleep, 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 bleep. Lenny, why'd you do that? I 100% disagreed with you. Bleep, bleep, bleep. And then you can also find us on Deezers and then D's Nuts, which we're not going to bleep out because that's 100% acceptable by everybody.
You can use them for a shoey, though, if you like.
Yeah, damn right, buddy. But Lenny, let them know what they've got to do before we can let them out of here, buddy.
Yeah, please, if you could, guys, we'd appreciate it. I know we've been a little inconsistent, but this is our step towards getting back to being a weekly show. Our first step into the digital realm of things. Thank you. Let us know how it went. Like, comment, share, subscribe, tell a friend, leave a penny, take a penny. And until next time, we love you. It's been fucking real. We're out.
Peace, everybody.
For those with good taste.